So reading from the Gospel of John, chapter 17. I pray not for them, but also for those who will believe in me through their words, that they may all be one as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be in us, and that the world may believe that you sent me. And I have given them the glory you gave me, so that they may be one as we are one, I in them and you in me, that they may be brought to perfection as one, that the world may know that you sent me and that you loved them even as you loved me. Father, they are your gift to me. I wish that where I am they also may be with me, that they may see my glory that you gave me, because you loved me before the foundation of the world. Righteous Father, the world also does not know you, but I know you, and they know that you sent me. I made known to them your name, and I will make it known, that the love with which you loved me may be in them, and I in them. O Heavenly King, Comforter, Spirit of truth, everywhere present and fill all things, treasure of blessings and giver of life, come and dwell within us, cleanse us of all stain, and save our souls, O gracious Lord. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. The passage we're taking from Jesus' priestly prayer, which he's praying really for and behalf of the apostles that he sends out, that he's in a sense ordaining and sending out. And he prays this beautiful, heartfelt prayer on their behalf to his Father. He's praying to his Father. Christ came on earth to draw us to his Father. This is, of course, coming to the conclusion of the year of the priest, and so it's kind of fitting that we're going to end on a subject, of course, having to do with priesthood, and also womanhood, because in the theology of the body, you cannot talk about one thing except in relation to the other, to its complement. And that's, of course, is that sacramental, integrated, mystical worldview that we've been promoting here. The theology of the body is the delivery system for that Catholic human worldview. I was traveling this week, and whenever I do, when I go to the airports, I always stop at the magazine stores, the bookstores. I call it spying on the enemy. So I see what's hot, what I could use for subject matter for radio show, and just to keep up on things, So I spotted this magazine, the big name one, The Atlantic. This issue, front cover, The End of Men. How women are taking control of everything. So okay, I gotta pick up that one. And here's this picture, and this is centerfold. The End of Men is the article. Basically what it's saying is because of a lot of shifts in things, especially in the economy, and a whole lot of other reasons, basically women are taking over and men feel very much at a loss. Jobs and things that where the physiology of men apply themselves well to, those kinds of jobs are decreasing, and the jobs that we have now, the way things are shifting, are jobs that have to do with more with communication, verbal skills and so on, which women are stronger in. And so women are getting the jobs and men are losing their jobs, and this of course makes them feel inadequate, which then makes them behave less maturely and so on, and so they just are becoming more and more repulsive to women, and women are just sort of moving on without them. That's kind of the gist of the article. In fact, if that wasn't enough, huh? Yes. In fact, the article goes so far as to have another inset article called "Are Fathers Necessary?" And here's the conclusion. The conclusion of the article is, the bad news for Dad is that despite common perception, there's nothing objectively essential about his contribution. The good news is we've gotten used to him. That's their conclusion here. This big-time secular magazine that people will turn to before they will turn to this. And that's why it's good we're doing what we're doing, because this is what they're being fed on. It's interesting because to show you just one example of how to battle some of this logic. They were talking about yes, here, for instance, this. They're debunking any kind of findings about how children do better in homes where they have a mother and father, and they're saying this. Dads, we tell our husbands, are essential influences on children, the source of unique benefits. There's only one problem. None of this is proven. In the February issue of the Journal of Marriage and Family, Judith Stacy, professor of sociology at New York University, and Timothy Biblars, a demographer from the University of Southern California, consolidated the available data on the role of gender in child rearing. As Stacy and Biblars point out, our ideas of what dads do and provide are based primarily on contrast between married couple parents and single female parents, an apples to oranges exercise that conflates gender, sexual orientation, marital status, and biogenetic relationships in ways that a true comparison of parent gender, one that compared married gay couples or married lesbian couples to married heterosexuals. That's a more equal comparison, they claim. Or single fathers to single mothers would not. Most of the data failed to distinguish between a father and the income a father provides, or between the presence of a father and the presence of a second parent, regardless of gender. Well, first of all, a married gay couple is a non-existent reality, so you can't make a comparison anyway. But they're saying that that is a better comparison than the studies that are already out there. Now you see, this is the stuff that when people read it, and far too many Catholics do, it blows right by them, the flawed wisdom here. And because it comes from a prestigious magazine and so on, that Catholics or people who pick it up tend to believe that this is what's true. And they don't often see exactly what is obvious in the logic. That they have presumptions. They're presuming, first of all, that there is such a thing as gay marriage. And it's basically on equal footing as regular marriage, traditional marriage. And see, that's the problem. See, and what we have to do is, so for instance, I have a quote on the board, just a sentence. See, it's like this. Here's what happens. A statement is made, just like you heard right there. The way the statement is presented, the way we perceive it, the way he's perceiving it, is like this. It's the words that come together. We sort of read them like this. And then we come to the end, what the point is. Now that's the problem. What we have to do, the John Paul II thing, what he demonstrated for us, modeled for us, and this is what Catholicism does, and what we have to do whenever we confront this kind of stuff, have discussions or arguments, whatever, with people about church teaching, about all that we're saying here with the theology of the body and its whole anthropology. What we do is this. You don't take a statement and move through it like this and come to the end. What you do is you take each word and move, here's the red, you move this direction, like the word church. The word patriarchy, move this direction. In other words, you enter into, you sort of plummet the depths of what a particular word means. See, that's the key. What they're doing is, what the world does is they sort of blur or diminish the rich meaning of each word, and they run it together as a statement, and they come out with the final point. Like this statement, for instance. The church is patriarchal. Now, you end up with that down here, and there's usually, it elicits a kind of emotional reaction at the end, meaning that this is somehow bad, wrong. And then they sort of wait here at call it the finish line, with their arms crossed, tapping their feet. Okay, Catholics, how do you respond to this? And we're like, oh yeah, gee, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I guess we are. Maybe the Pope will change. Maybe we'll get a different Pope. Okay, what we have to do is say, oh, well, let's back up here. Let me answer for you. I'm going to take on a journey deep into this word, church. What the church is, how the church thinks, what our value systems and standards are. Then after about 5 hours of that, if you're still with me, I'll take you on to the next word. And that's going to require about 10 hours. So from this simple sentence, you're going to take 2 words and you're going to give them an entire course just to answer their question. And unfortunately, that's what we have to do. And unfortunately, we can't soundbite our way through this. That's our disadvantage in a sense. So we're going to look at the patriarchal dimension of the church. Is this really a bad word? When I was all my life, and especially during my years as a seminarian, prior to that, and as a priest, and then especially as I came into the theology of the body, heard John Paul's lectures live, and came into other people like Christopher West and people that are working in theology of the body, as I gained more and more of my understanding of it, I found that it was something I was always into, as it were. It was always something that inside of me I knew was fundamental, this whole thing of gender, what gender really is. And I knew that there was something wrong with the way it was being attacked. But I couldn't always articulate it totally, so that's why I love the theology of the body, because it gives us a chance to articulate that in a tool. But there were things happening even before the theology of the body. Well, see, the theology of the body, John Paul's thought, you have to realize, he dug deep into what was always there. The scriptures, the church, even to the point where his theology of the body takes us back to the beginning. He goes back to the beginning. He doesn't invent something new. He's looking at time-honored things in new ways. So there were people that were doing work in this area, and people who had their fingers onto it. One of them was Bishop Sheen, and even people outside the church, some of who eventually came into the church, or like, for instance, there's a book here I read some years ago called, this is before Theology of the Body got all put together and everything. And so I kind of had to look for other sources. I'd come across things, and this one book is called Missing from Action, Vanishing Manhood in America by Weldon Hardenbrook. And Weldon Hardenbrook is one of those group of, they were evangelicals that came in as a group into the Orthodox Church. And a lot of them have done some writing and so on. We have a section in here that helps us with our subject today. And it's called The Forgotten Father. And in part here it says, let's get theological. I know I'm getting theological, but men are going to have to get theological, something their passive minds do not want to do, to come back to the truth of manhood. Theology, remember, is a manly discipline. When men forsake the discipline of thinking theologically, they trade the church for commerce and surrender it again to feminine piety. So rather than just being comfortable and unscholarly, men need to think, even if it hurts. That's, of course, what we're saying here. We need to think. See, the way the world presents things or characterizes things is unthinking. It doesn't show critical thinking, we don't edit things that come into us. This all has to be edited. Any statement has to be edited for its veracity, especially in terms of words. Okay, let's go on with our author here today. Weldon Hardenbrook, his name is called Missing from Action, Vanishing Manhood in America. In the word patriarchy, you'll recall arche, see the arche, the first part, arche, what arche is based on, means first, as well as to rule. The Father then is the first, the fountainhead, the source of all things. Even the other two persons of the Trinity find their eternal source in God the Father. For as the Father eternally begets the Son, it is from the Father the Holy Spirit eternally proceeds. However, because the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father, it does not follow that he is less nature than the Father. It is in their personness that the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit hold their separate uniqueness. Now, earlier on in the book, let's see if I can find the right quote here. Okay, anyway. Okay. Arche, as he mentions, he's taking the word apart like we're doing here. Arche, this part, means first, or kind of ruler, overseer. Also it's related to like author, the one who sets in motion, the one who oversees, who initiates, who instigates. So it's first or overseer. Patri, it refers to what? Father, or family, right. So you have now, really this word, what does it actually mean? Father and family. Are those words kind of warm? Did it kind of give you a little bit of a warm feeling when you hear them? Are they kind of on the warm side? Okay, good. And arche, this part, would be first, or ruler. That's where we get like overarching. The word to overarch, or to arch, means to kind of go over something. So the Father who is over something, who rules something. This meaning has nothing to do with a dominating, tyrannical, insensitive despot. But this is how it's characterized or understood in our culture, because we don't go into the meaning of words. Patriarchal, none of this occurs to someone. Patriarchal means something mean and nasty that's got to be corrected, right? But it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with love, with initiating love, overseeing the order of love, giving of self, and service. That's what patriarchal means. Now, in the word patri, father, what else is in there? What else do we know of as fatherhood? Since we're coming up on Father's Day, and we're ending this year of Father, the priest. What does fatherhood say? What else does fatherhood mean? Yes.
I heard a definition that a father is the provider for his family.
Mm-hmm.
He's the protector of his family.
Right.
He shows his son how to live.
Right.
He shows his daughter whom to marry.
Okay.
And he shows his family what God is like.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. Very good. Excellent. In fact, let's start listing. See, we're going to start this journey now. So you started us off here. We're going to start plummeting. We're going to go this way. See. And our adversaries will be patiently waiting for us to finish as we explain. I'm going to equate the words patri and father, okay? All right, let's go with characteristics now. You said what? Provide, protect. What else?
He shows his son how to live.
Okay, I'm gonna. Let's get one word for that. Showing. How about mentoring? Perhaps mentor. Model. Yeah, model. Okay.
He shows his daughter whom to marry.
Okay, now that's interesting. You just touched on another huge subject. I've got to find a word for it. So we got to get to the science of soundbiting. The father, it's kind of like the image is like the image. Imagine a boat. A boat is like the mother. The father is like the rudder of the boat. Okay, so it's like the boat. Again, like the openness, the receptivity, like the womb. We're in the family's in the boat, the safe place, the warm place, like the home. But where's that boat going? The rudder determines. In the order, in the world of relationships, especially when it comes to an integrated sexuality in both the daughter and the son, it is the father's role that is the most determining factor. That's kind of like what you were touching on. It's a big concept. We'll have to come up with some word with it. And, it's
Well, it shows the daughter whom to marry. I mean, it used to daughters to marry. It used to men and told it used to marry.
modeling
Right.
and
And then what shows the family what God is like. He's always there. He's loving. He's forgiving. He's protecting.
okay, I'm going to use it for one term for authority. Shows authority. It shows, I guess you could put it into modeling. that about but he also models, and I don't know if I come up with one word, but guides, determines, influence.
Someone said guide here.
Guide. Okay, guide. That's a good one. Guide. All right, he guides. In other words, from the father, the daughter learns about her femininity. She's affirmed in her femininity. She learns how to relate to men. She feels confident in her femininity. If she's confident in her femininity, what are the things she's going to do and not going to do in her relationship? She's going to tend to choose a better, more mature mate, or real man as a father, because she has that model, that concept, and she has that idea of her own self, that she deserves such a man. She's not just going to settle for anything. She knows that she deserves, she is a lady. She was affirmed in who she was, not only as a person, but specifically as a girl, as a woman, as the feminine. And so she knows that she deserves what is good from another man. So she's not going to make herself vulnerable, and she's going to tend to have better choices in her relationship, especially if it's her final relationship, her permanent spousal relationship. The same thing with the male. Now, of course, the father's thing in the male is this huge issue, which just strikes right at the heart of the whole same-sex attraction issue that we've worked on here for many, many times. But the father is that rudder, is the most single influencing factor. Okay, anything else about fatherhood? I'm going to put one up here. Sacrificial. Sacrifices. Sacrificial, and another word, spent. Fatherhood sacrifices itself. In other words, there's a sort of a spending oneself on behalf of the family, of the spouse, that is part of fatherhood. And close to this is, I'll say, planting the seed. Okay, the seed. He plants the seed. You notice that all of this is reflected in the physiology, the theology, the language of the male body. Is the man not the one who has the seed? Does he carry the seed, right? And he plants the seed, right? Now that's for physical conception, right? Remember, think mystically, think sacramentally. Every physical reality has a mystical dimension to it. What seed does the father plant? Not only the seed of conception, for conception, towards conception, but a seed of what? Of
Spiritual.
Exactly, yes. Of truth, of authority, of teaching. That's why, like in his book, and traditionally, except in recent history, teaching was a male profession. It's not a slam against women. It's because what is teaching? It's taking something here and planting it in you, right? Getting it inside of you, right? That's a male action. Can women do it? Yes, they can. Can they be marvelous teachers? Yes, they can. But they also do it in a different way. This is why, in fact, in this article, they touch on truths. They just don't know what to do with them. In this article, it's talking about our whole education system, where we may have to, they're going to find, you know what these colleges are doing now? It used to be they were trying to get women in colleges before, years ago, affirmative action, all that stuff. Now it's the opposite. They're trying to recruit. In fact, they said they actually have, imagine this, they actually have women working in registration offices in colleges who are going through the applications. And these women are being told they have to take the applications of males and put them on the top. So that because they're recruiting males to get into colleges, because there's now another imbalance in the other way. And so they said, and they go through, they look at our education system and they say, our education system, one of the reasons males drop out of school, they don't do as well in school, they don't go on to school as much, is because the education system has so shifted, where it's mostly female teachers, like in elementary school, junior high school, where it no longer is a system that is amenable to how men learn. And see, it used to be where it was mostly males who were the teachers. Okay, you could have female teachers, yes. But again, here's where the theology of the body comes in. Even our whole education system, if we had a theology of the body understanding, our education system would improve, because right now it's shot. It's pretty poor. Other countries are beating the pants off of us. We're America. Okay, but if we had a theology of the body perspective, we would see, men and women are different. They learn differently. They need so what they're saying is, there may be a push now to do, as Catholic schools always did, actually have more and more separate schools for boys and separate schools for girls, so that men will actually learn better in that atmosphere. It's geared more towards men, and of course, conversely, towards women at the girls' schools. Okay, so anyway, we got off on that because of the idea of how central this idea of planting a seed is. So do you see the connection that what is physical? That's why John Paul went to the theology of the body. That's the one thing we all know, we all have, irrefutable. But he knew that what was there, what was in the physical order, has its, I'm going to use a term, mystical or sacramental dimension, spiritual dimension. It's like he spends a lot of time on Dignity of Womanhood talking about spiritual motherhood. Okay, so while we start with the physical always has this sacramental or spiritual dimension. So we're talking about planting the seed of spirituality, of faith, of like doctrine, of dogma, of right thinking, of the order of things. That's another word too. Along with related to authority would be order. The Father sets down or kind of establishes, protects the order of things. Again, it's why Adam came first. The man came first in the Garden of Eden. Why? Because he embodies, the language and theology of his body. He embodies a sense of order, of authority, of overseeing something and keeping it in order. So that the order of love and life, which came along later, secondly, can thrive. See, it's like the order of life and love needs to be in something, needs to have an order to it that protects it so it can thrive. And that's the call, in a sense, of the male, the fatherhood. Let's see. I'm going to put... well, we could go on, but a lot of other characteristics would be contained in these words and these characters. Like, for instance, fatherhood. You notice how even when I don't know, usually I demonstrate this little baby doll, but I'll use a book. I'll use a Theology of the Body book. If I even have this when I do a talk with the audience, they actually have them demonstrate, have a woman come up and have the baby laying there, ask the woman to pick the baby up and hand me the baby, present the baby to me. Then I ask a man to do that. And the audience watches as they spontaneously do it, and they do it differently every time, automatically. The woman will bring the baby automatically to her, like this, and then hand it off this way. The man will come and always hold it more externally like this and give it to me. Yeah. Give it to me. Passing it off, yes. It's lots of fun whenever I have baptisms, and depending on who, I always hope that the godmother is holding the baby, because when it comes time to give it to the father, it's much easier. They know how to do it. If it otherwise it ends up being the guy pass, and we're like, because I have to kind of hold the baby this way, and the guy's giving it to me this way, and the baby's like, yeah. So yeah, it's the first great trauma of baptism, So, but there's even an interaction there of the father, and when he approaches the child and takes the child and lifts it up, the action is one of, now watch, if the child is here, gets feeling safe, now I pick it up, this is the baby, I'm the father. What? Right there, freeze. What's happening there? What is the baby feeling right now?
He's on his own.
Yes. He's no longer, okay, now, remember, he's in the crib, a lot of the blankets and the fluffy, and he's all nice and warm. Now he doesn't feel this, he doesn't go from here to here with the father, see? The baby goes from here to this. And, if you're like most fathers, not only does he go to there, but the baby then goes to here. How you doing, boy? Look at this, my boy, right? So now what's the baby feeling? The baby's feeling, oh my gosh, life is scary and exciting. Oh, there's something. Oh no, oh, but wait, Dad caught me. It's scary, am I going to die? No, Dad is there. What is he teaching? What's the child learning? What's he learning about God? Yes, and about the faith journey. At the faith journey, life is part of life. Part of life is this, blankets and pillows and this. Very important, yes it is. But also life and the faith journey at times will call you to be like this and to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm alone, suspended, I'm going to die. I can't do this, it's scary, I'm so afraid. But what is the message from God to us? Trust me. Trust me. And that message is communicated for the first time to the infant just by the way that father picks up the child.
How he shows his family what God is like.
Exactly. So that dimension of God is huge, which is why this is so wrong, so incredibly wrong. They obviously never visited a jail full of men, because not one of those men in there came from a family where they had a relationship with their father. And that's why they're in jail. Anyway, two dimensions of the faith journey about God, loving, close, and tender, and awesome, and powerful, and scary, all at the same time. Now, if we throw all this together, we then understand why the church calls priests father. The church has, yes, a patriarchal dimension. It's not patriarchal. It's a patriarchal dimension. See, again, when someone says that, it's a patriarchal church, it's no. It has a patriarchal dimension, but it's not patriarchal. You'll see their face just go, well, you'll stop them just like that. Let me explain what I mean by that. So, now, the patriarchal dimension, when you talk about these things in the church, you have to remember that we're talking about always specific dimensions of the church. Because the church is headed by, the head of the church has a patriarchal dimension to it, does not in any way put women down at all. Because it only if you think, again, non-sacramentally, do you come to the conclusion that the patriarchal church is some unfair, chauvinistic, insensitive, lopsided structure. The reason why we look at the word patriarchy and see it's a bad word, especially those outside the church, is because we're thinking in terms of this one thing being everything. And we're seeing it in terms of power. Remember those three things? Power, function, usefulness. That's the prism out of which the world looks at everything. So it looks at the church, and then it indicts the church because it's going against that code, power, function, usefulness. It's not measuring up to that standard. Well, we don't use that standard. And what the world is looking at when they see a patriarchal church is they're taking one dimension of the church and stretching it over every aspect of the church. The patriarchal dimension of the church is just like our bodies. It's one aspect. My head is one aspect of my whole body. But where would my head be without my heart? Where would it be? Dead, right? Where would it be without the rest of my body? It would have no meaning, no purpose. I mean, my body wouldn't be able to protect it. They wouldn't be able to do anything. And conversely, where would the body be without the head? You have one dimension. This is just one aspect of the church. It's patriarchal, which means all these things. It means one who leads, who guides, who serves, the body. Headship is about service. It's about putting yourself, in a sense, below everything else, at the service of everything else. You know, if the head leads, the head tells you go this way. Okay, the body has to follow, not because the head is saying it's superior, wants to lord over you, because that's how it serves the body. And the body, in turn, serves the head.
Even the way they phrase, like, children do fine. They don't need both parents.
Yeah.
It's a functional thing. It's like, well, what are you measuring? What do you mean
Right.
by fine?
Exactly.
So, like, do they get a good job?
Mhm.
Money? What are you measuring? Are you measuring them as persons? Like
Precisely.
their development, their spiritual life, their ability to love and give and serve themselves or whatever. It's so diminished. It's just this incredibly diminished.
And
way of
contradictory,
living.
because ironically, what they're measuring by is a stereotypical standard of maleness, of men.
Yeah.
Are you out there in the workplace? Are you
Yeah.
functioning like a man? Are you making money? Do you have a job? Not what kind of person are you, kind of woman are you? What are you really about? What really is your gifts and contribution? And also, it doesn't take into consideration at what price? At what price? To those characteristics that are uniquely feminine. At what price to those characteristics are you functioning like a man? This is his whole point here. Is that womanhood can be wherever it needs to be in society, but never at the cost of what is intrinsic. Like he calls it, in the enormous gift and riches of womanhood that is unique to womanhood. You already have, it's like people say, yeah, the church is patriarchal. I say, well, thank God. And they go, well, they think I'm some like big chauvinist. I said, I know. I said, what do you mean? I says, because if it wasn't, that would be a terrible blow to womanhood. What? Yeah, because patriarchal is there to serve womanhood, to serve the body. In a sense, it's like
Soundbite.
yeah. In a sense, it's like putting itself down and raising womanhood up. In other words, we serve, we model, we provide, we protect, we take the hicks, we spend ourselves, we sacrifice ourselves. Why? Is that fun? No, it's not fun, but you know what? It's very fulfilling if it's done in service to the woman, the body. So, patriarchy means a fatherly overseeing, a fatherly ruling, as it were. The one who sort of leads, oversees, in a loving but forthright way. That's fatherhood. That's what it is. It's fatherhood. And Jesus Christ, like you heard in the beginning, I read that, wanted to lead everyone to the Father. He came so that when you look, he said, when you look at me, you see the Father. I want you to see the Father. And you see him through me. I lead you to the Father. And the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, of course, are equal, but they're different. The Father is the one who initiates, who puts in motion. First principle, as they say in theology. And that's a benevolent thing. It's a holy thing. It's a loving thing. The Father makes the first move in love. It makes the move towards something. They say like when children are playing, and going back to this image, when children are playing, another image for that is they study and they see that if a child falls down, gets hurt or something, by nature the father will be slower to come to the immediate aid of the child. The mother will immediately go, oh, which is good, but the father will be like, in fact, I saw this the other day. I was driving by till I saw a little kid and his father's out there, and a little boy fell down, and And I could see the father, I was watching his reaction, he was kind of like, he was looking, and he's like, he gives that moment's hesitation, like, okay, will he get up on his own? You know, and men do that instinctively. Instinctively. Why? Because we're programmed by God the Father to image the fatherhood of God, because the father is instinctively helping the child to discover and develop its own strengths. You know, to be able to get up, dust yourself off, and face life. You know, take the hits and keep going, because you'll need that in life. And so the father will often say, he'll assess it, and it's okay. The kid's basically okay. Oh, you're okay. Okay, that's all right. Come on. You know, he'll be like that. You know, and he might come if need be. Yeah, he'll comfort the child. You know, or give whatever is needed. You know, if it's really hurt or something. But by nature, he's going to just sort of let the child discover their own strength and kind of get back on their feet on their own, and realize that what hit them isn't so catastrophic. That it's you know, they're bigger than it is. You know. And that's the essential message that comes. These are the things that come from, you know, the mother and the father bring essential principles of life to the child that the father cannot bring to the child what a mother can bring. The child needs this, and he cannot bring that, not in the way that a mother can. He cannot. And conversely, the mother cannot bring this in the same way as the father. And that's why the two are so essential. You really need statistics and all that, with all these flawed and skewed things that come out of just to make agendas happen. You know, you just look at it, just watch it. It's common sense. Yeah, it's common sense. Yeah.
Bishop Corleone at the Illinois Catholic Prayer Breakfast was saying that because the younger generation, can you guys hear me online? That's a really strong mic. It probably can pick up. But anyway, he was saying that, they can hear me.
Okay.
So, he was saying that because the younger crowd like really supports gay marriage, the younger generations don't see any difference between, you know, male, female, all that stuff.
Yes.
But he said if you tell them children need a mother and a father,
Yes.
they get that because they've experienced that.
Yes.
They've been without a parent.
Yes.
You know, oh, yeah, that's true. Like the truth of it, the common sense of it.
Yes. Yeah.
Without saying statistics, you don't even need to say statistics.
Yeah.
And I mean, those are skewed statistics
yes,
too.
They are.
It's people who have an agenda who
Right.
set up a scientific survey.
Yeah, exactly.
To,
right.
you know, prove
right.
and they eliminate all the data that goes
Yes.
against what they want to find. So
Yes.
yeah.
Exactly. And they do this, so they sort of blow over those words, those sentences, and come to what their point is, you know, the point of the agenda. And you have to back up and always say, wait a minute, we're going to talk about the words. Because the words are attached to concepts, to realities. And you're really talking about realities, and that's why the words are so important. That's what he does. That's why it takes him so long to get through everything. Because he takes a single word. I mean, most of this book is the first few lines in Genesis. You know? He just plummets and spirals through the deep and rich, inexhaustible meaning of these things. And that's where truth lies. And that's the advantage that we have to start to realize and learn as Catholics, to become confident, to become deep in our faith, more committed, to transmit our faith, to hope to evangelize, to transform people, you know, convert and all that. Because I know we feel a loss, but that's because we're being fooled by the way that they come at us. They come up with these foregone conclusions come from agenda. Church is patriarchal, just like, for instance, people say to me, why doesn't the church ordain women? I do the Irish thing, even though I'm not Irish. I answer a question with a question. Now, do they now? You know? I say, well, let me understand something. Are you asking me, why does the church not ordain women to the priesthood? Or are you asking me, why doesn't the church ordain women to the priesthood? You get it? Same exact words. One is a question, please explain your faith to me. I really want to know, because I don't know. The other one is, here's the agenda. Why aren't you marching to it? I demand an explanation. Now, so what we do, respond to that and say, well, let me explain. First of all, I ask them which way they're asking the question. Now that flushes them right there. See? and they can gather themselves enough, and they'll say, well, yeah, they go like that. All right, I'll answer the question for you. But I have to do it by explaining some things to you about the meaning of words. What ordination is, what priesthood is, what man is, what woman is. That's the only way I can answer your question. So you try to take them on a crash course of the theology of the body and get their minds to look and think in terms of sign, sacrament, and symbol. The same thing here with patriarchy. Now, can these things be abused and misunderstood? Absolutely. And at the expense of womanhood? Absolutely. Did I tell you, I don't know if I told you the story of, you know what pre-Cana was in the old days? The good old days of the church? And a lot of you conservative Catholics, now listen up, if you consider yourself conservative, I don't like to use those terms, and there's no conservative liberal, it's just Catholic. But many that might fancy themselves as conservative, that dream of the old days of the church, good old days. You know what pre-Cana was? Hold on to your seats for this one, ladies. This was the sum total of pre-Cana in the early days of the church, the good old days. The couple would come in one time in front of the priest. He would say to the woman, don't ever deny your husband, because that might make him look elsewhere outside the marriage. That was pre-Cana. In the good old days of the church, the 1950s, the 40s, the pre-Vatican II days. There's a guy in my church, he was not Catholic, and he married one of our girls from my church, and he recounted this. He says, yeah, I came into the priest's office, and we sat down for a pre-Cana, and he turned to my fiancée, who's now my wife, and said, don't ever deny him anything, because otherwise he may go elsewhere. I thought to myself, well, this is a great church I'm marrying into. But after about 2 weeks of marriage, I found out that wasn't true. But can you imagine what that was like for women? And what was that? That was not the real church. What that was really taking anything like this that is part of the church, from patriarchy to the Ephesians chapter 5, wives be submissive to your husband. It's taking all that and not really understanding or presenting it correctly. That did happen in the church. Now you can imagine how that actually helped that kind of pre-Cana helped to open the door to Catholics accepting birth control. Because many a wife would come to the priest and say, Father, I know I shouldn't, that's a sin to use birth control, but my husband doesn't want to cooperate. Well, he was told before he was married, the wife was told before she was married, you're never supposed to deny your husband. So it's just, it's hard to have to even say this, to think of this was the church. This is the good old days of the church.
But there were more Catholics, more priests, more nuns, more Catholics.
There were, yeah, because there were other things that were in place. Yeah.
All of this.
Very good question. Very good question, because this is what happens. It's the pendulum theory. Before there was not enough of the right kind of teaching of theology about it, there was this kind of underdeveloped and stereotypical and oftentimes, yes, chauvinistic and kind of interpretation of the church's teaching. Now we went the other way. Everything was a sin. It was tough on women. Now it's gone the other way. Nothing's a sin, and we're feminized. That's why truth is here, and that's what this is about. That's why he wrote this. That's why he did all these kind of teachings. Whatever he did, that's what he was trying to do. He was trying to unveil the true ethos of the church, starting with, or using as a basis, the view of the human person as man and woman. Who is man and woman? Who are we as a human person? And because that is what was needed here. Who are we as man? Who are we as woman? How should we be towards each other? That's the part that was missing, got veiled, got kind of forgotten, or covered up by layers of secularism and Protestantism and Jansenism and a lot of things that passed for Catholicism but weren't. Rigorism, rigidity, and prudism, and prudishness, and all kinds of stuff. So we had that dimension of the church. But there were also, of course, many fine, good dimensions of the good old days too. But in areas that were this way, we went this way. Before everything was, remember that? You're always going to hell for everything. Every time you came to church, the sermon was all about how bad we were and we're all going to hell. Especially if you ate me on a Friday. If you ate me on a Friday, you were going to hell. It's like Catholics would come, see, that's another thing. Catholics would come to confession. Every week, yeah. But they'd be like, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I ate meat on Friday. The meantime, and the other one, I ate meat on Friday and I drank a little bit the other day. Translated, I have a terrible alcoholic problem. I beat my wife. My kids are a mess. I blow my paycheck, and my kids are without shoes and like that. But I ate meat on Friday. Now that's actually what was happening in the confessionals. That's why Vatican II happened. The Holy Spirit knew, okay, we got some good things in the good old days, but we also got some wrong things here that have to be corrected. And the church does that. The Spirit will correct will cleanse and purge and correct, but it's always though, however, it's always trying to grasp what the church is really saying. The church really wasn't saying that pre-Cana was just about the man wanting, the woman having to comply with the man's sexual desire anytime he wants. That really wasn't what it was about, but that's what became a common practice. The church is not about being overly feminized now and lax and there's no fasting, there's no sense of penance, there isn't much confession. It's not about that either. It's about understanding what has always been in the church, but understanding it in a new way and in a true way. And it goes all the way to these issues like patriarchy. Why do we have patriarchy in the church? It's not a patriarchal church. It has a patriarchal dimension, which is nothing different than our bodies. Does your body have a head? Does the head function by leading your body? Helping to make decisions for your body? Yes. Is your head influenced by the body in a very crucial way? Absolutely. Your body feels something, right? So the head says, I'm getting this input from the body. The body is sick. I must go see a doctor or whatever. Or the body is happy. I must continue to do what it is that made the body happy. The body told me it's happy. Therefore, I must make a decision to follow through on that, whatever. So, see, it works together. The church is the same way. So, patriarchy is not a dirty word. It's a holy word. It's a word of service. Thank God the church is patriarchal. And that's one of the best things for womanhood. It also makes present, again, the spousal mystery, which is the fundamental element of everything. It makes present God the Father and Christ the bridegroom. The other dimension that I talked about, function, usefulness, and power. The world looks at things in terms of power. Okay, so it sees who's the head. They associate it with power, but we said it's service. If you want to speak in terms of power, Do you know where the real power of the church is? The real power, where the church will rise and fall? Yeah, yes. Our approach to Eucharist is, yes, it's central to everything, yes.
Jesus on the cross, that's where I see power.
Yeah, you're close. Yes, in that sense, yes. I'm thinking, you're thinking...
Can you repeat whatever we say, because they're saying they can't hear us?
Oh, okay. What is real power? If we want to talk, the church doesn't talk in power, but when it talks in power, it does so in a different way. Your answers were theological. It come a little bit off the theological and more into the personal. What is the real power of the church? The real power of the church is right here. The real power of the church is the church's monasticism. It's true. It's the church's monasticism. The church is measured. The barometer. If you want to take a pulse check of the church, the barometer, the pulse check, is its monasticism. Whether east or west, religious orders, monastics, that is the soul. If you look in terms of what has the power in the church, it's not a power of ruling. It's a much deeper power. It's a power of holiness, a power of prayer, a power of rootedness. As John Paul II said, monasticism is the reference point for all of the baptized. He said in his document Orientae Lumen, Light of the East. Monasticism is the reference point for the entire church.
Why? I guess the prayer
I
part.
think it's the holiness and the understanding of giving yourself to God to serve.
Yes, because
Nothing like
it embodies not only the prayer, but the eschatological. In other words, the last things, the ultimate things, are made present. The eschaton is made present in a most real way through the celibate, the virgin celibate vocation, life, which is what monasticism is. It's living the eschaton now. And if you look historically at the church, what kept the church together, what kept civilization together was what? Especially in a time in the Roman Empire when it was invaded by the barbarians, what preserved civilization? The monasteries. The monasteries. Yeah. Look at the St. Francis, the St. Benedicts, the St. Teresa's. These were monastics who were literally, turned the world, the church, on its axis. And it was through monasticism that we had learning, education, hospitals. Hospitals were invented by the Catholic Church, by its monastics. St. Basil the Great was an Eastern father, by the way. That's where hospitals were invented. Yes.
I'm just curious, your priests can marry in your order, right?
In the Eastern churches, married men can become priests. But if you're a priest, you can't get married.
But that's two vocations, isn't it? I mean, you seem to believe that the priesthood is one vocation, and I think it is. Separate vocation. But then you also have a family and a wife and children.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hard to think of it as two, huh? Yes. It's always a tough thing for, I guess, for us to understand in the Western culture. Maybe if we're in the cultures where there is married clergy, it'd be easier to understand because it's sort of commonplace. It's just you identify it with the church. In the Eastern,
I think the great witness of married priests, though, is in the Eastern Church. It's not going to happen in the Latin Church. I really don't think we have too long of a tradition and older tradition, and you have to read Paul VI's Priestly Celibacy. Just Google it. He'll explain everything about the Latin rite. But it dawned on me that the married priesthood in the East proves that virginity and marriage are not mutually opposed.
Absolutely.
They're not like way over here and way over here and never the twain shall meet. There's a unity there. So I think that's the witness to me of the Eastern.
Yeah, it's like two sides of a book, two sides of the same coin. Same book. There's a front, there's a back. Because now, okay, how does the priest He's not married to two wives. He is espoused on two levels. You can maybe put it that way. He is. We all have to live espousally. He's espoused on two levels. One, the sacramental, one, the eschatological. Now, it's interesting how they wed the two, how they overlap in the life of the priest when you have married priests. Like something many people don't realize when they push for married priesthood, whether in the Latin Church or wherever, is they don't realize that one of the requirements of a married priest and his wife is that they are to abstain from relations on the night prior to when he's going to celebrate the Eucharist. And they're encouraged to do so during the fasting periods. And in the Eastern churches, we have 4 periods of fasting. Now, so much for daily liturgy. No, not really. No, but see, that's something. Why is that? Well, many scholars believe that is actually a remnant of what was a prohibition or the law of continence from the time of the apostles. That when the apostles, as they became priests by Christ, visiting hands, and then they made priests, they imposed hands and called others to this priesthood, that from that time, many scholars believe that those men and their wives had to agree that were continent from that time on. And that this rule in the churches that have a married priesthood to this day is a remnant of that. In other words, it was a full-time continence. It was continent for the rest of their lives. In the Eastern churches, the continence is just at certain times, but it's still there. Okay, why is that? Because, as Sister said, when you have the marriage and you have celibacy in this way, you never ever lose the eschatological dimension. Now, even though the priest is married, his marriage, and he and his wife are both reminded that his priesthood still shares in an eschatological dimension. That he is priest for all, and that as priest he has in that moments or dimensions of the celibate, just like the monastic. Because priesthood has an eschatological dimension. In other words, it unites heaven and earth. It points to how things will be in the next life when we're not married as we know marriage here. Do you understand that? It's the eschatological dimension that never drops out of the equation. And if he loses his wife, let's say a young priest is ordained and he's a married man. What if he loses his wife the next day? He cannot marry ever again.
It's difficult for a married priest to find time for the parishioners. Family takes an awful lot of time.
Yes, it does, yeah. It's something that has to be understood in the full context, in the culture, in the Eastern churches, parishes are smaller. They tend to have grown up on the village image, a model rather. But it's at the same time, yes, it is a balance. It is a challenge. It has a lot of strong points about it and a lot of challenges, which is why the simplistic suggestion that if we had married priests, let priests marry, that we wouldn't have had the clergy sex abuse scandal. It's not what it was about. So always in anything, well, even in a lay married couple, especially in the Eastern churches, they're asked also, they're encouraged during the periods of fasting to abstain, to practice abstinence, like St. Paul said, for a time and for prayer. They are in the Russian tradition. They're asked to, when they're married, they're asked to not just go on a honeymoon, but actually go on retreat to a monastery. Yeah. So this idea of that, okay, you're married, but it's not just about you two, and you just having a fun life and sex all the time. No, it's about you're married, but your marriage must have at the same time always that a reminder, an element of the eschatological. This is why the best candidates for marriage, if you see a happily married couple, you should be able to look at them and say, you know what? He would have been a great monk, she would have been a great nun. That's what you should see. You should say or see in a happily married couple. Conversely, a happy celibate, you should look at them and say, she would have been a great wife and mother. He would have been a great father and husband. Now you stop there. You don't add on the part like people do, like, what a waste. You just stop there. They would have been a great mother and wife. And in fact, St. John Chrysostom, great father of the church, said that all married couples are in a sense monastic monks. They have to have the element of monasticism in there. So a great, happily, faithfully married people would make great celibates, and vice versa. Is that hard to understand? See, if someone says, "Oh man," sometimes some people say to me, like just my buddies did, especially when I knew I was becoming a priest, years ago and all that. Oh gosh, Tom, oh man, I can never do that. You sure you can do that? Golly, celibate the rest of your life. Come on, I know I can. I'm being honest about myself. They're implying like I was like, Well, the thing is, that person who figures they couldn't imagine themselves being celibate, who the heck do I think I am? That person is going to have trouble being married.
Because they're saying, I have no self-control.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't have the sense of that it's that even in marriage, it's about dying to self. It's about being celibate. Again, in a mystical way, not sometimes physical, yes, but in another way as well. And again, this is why I'll never forget one of the most amazing moments of my life was standing in St. Peter's Square and hearing John Paul II from his mouth saying these words about even if a husband looks at his own wife lustfully, he could commit adultery in his heart. I thought that's gonna turn the world on its axis. This is it. When I heard that, I was jumped for joy. And that I heard it from his own lips as this is it. This is it. If he said nothing else, he nailed it. This is the axis. This is what it's all about. Because what he was saying is that even in marriage, you have to have that eschatological view of your spouse, which is like. And he was referring even like in the Bible, Isaiah, where he says, in a Song of Songs, "You've ravished my heart, my sister, my bride." I always tell it to married couples when I prepare them for marriage or where they're having problems and they come to me and I say, you know what? Remember something. You did not meet as husband and wife. You met as brother and sister in the Lord. And you never stop being that. You are first and foremost brother and sister in the Lord. How do you treat, I tell the husband, how do you treat another woman in the parish who's your sister in the Lord? How do you treat her? Do you yell at her? Do you criticize her? Do you smack her? No. You automatically treat her with respect. This is your sister in the Lord first. And she's your wife. So there's a celibate dimension in that. Okay, there's an eschatological dimension of that. If that's kept before their eyes, that will keep their relationship in context for what it is. It will keep it honest to what it really is. So you see, this is an essential element that he does such a wonderful job on, that of this union of celibacy and marriage, two sides of the same coin. And see, this is from Dignity of Vocational Womanhood. Since Christ, in instituting the Eucharist, linked it in such an explicit way to the priestly service of the apostles, it is legitimate to conclude that he thereby wished to express the relationship between man and woman, between what is feminine and what is masculine. See, we find, and again he says in here, his whole section here, the language of liturgy is in a sense conjugal, and conjugal relations are in a sense liturgical. In other words, we find the context of our being man and woman in the Eucharist, in the liturgy. And he says, it is a relationship willed by God, both in the mystery of creation and the mystery of redemption. It is the Eucharist, above all, that expresses the redemptive act of Christ the bridegroom towards the church, the bride. You know, what are the quintessential words during the Mass? Take, eat, this is my body, right? Given to you. That's the spousal mystery in the church. Just want to touch...
Father, I think if you don't believe in God, then, I mean, that's the difference.
It is.
And I don't know, I'm really starting to think, because, I mean, there's so much to this, the Darwin thing.
Yes,
and
yeah.
all that. Maybe when we talk with people, we need to establish whether or not they believe in God.
Yes.
Because it's going to be two completely different conversations.
It is. It is.
We like to think that we can sort of do stuff from reason and make proofs from reason and all this. But when push and yeah, that can go so far. But when it comes to these matters, people are not going to go, well, it's rational to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
People are going to do what they want to do and follow their heart and all that stuff. And I think we have to help people understand that they're, who say they believe in God, that they're really living like practical atheists.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
If they don't think God has anything to do
Right.
with their sex lives
Exactly.
or their bodies,
They just want the comfort of a hereafter and a father. But
Precisely. And
they really don't see the connection. I mean, they just don't, because we live in this separated world of like, and I think our American life trains us that way. Oops, separation of church and state, public
yes.
and private.
Right.
Everything is separated. So
Separated.
even though we're very religious people and
Right.
you know, we're allowed to practice our religion in our churches.
Privately.
And, you know,
Private.
and we can get really as enthusiastic as we want
Right.
about our faith. Don't you dare. Like when it comes to, you know, your workplace
Right.
or
Exactly.
the political arena where we have to hammer out how we're going to live as a society, God is out of the picture.
Right.
And utilitarianism is taking
Right.
its place.
Exactly.
Functionality. How much is it going to cost to keep grandma alive? You know,
Right.
all this
Right.
stuff. So
Exactly.
I'm just really tired of like God being shoved to the side.
Yeah.
It's like you can't. You can't even do a mental exercise where you shove God to the side for a few minutes.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Yes, that's the problem. It's the that's why I talk about the sacramental worldview. You know, that it's integrated. It sees it all together. We're trained. We grow up in it with an ethos of compartmentalized, like Sister's saying. We separate out. We're very compartmentalized, very bipolar. It's this or that. This, you know, it's church and state, and liberal, conservative. You know, this. And remember, unity, synthesis is of God. Disunity, disorder. Remember, God brought order out of chaos at the beginning. He brings things together into a simplicity and a synthesis that is profound. Simple but profound. The opposite of God is disintegration, It's complexity, which is shallow and superficial. Just like going back to my thing about the words here. This normal way of getting through statements and concepts in our culture is shallow. Our way, is to bring it all together, to plummet its depths and see how it all becomes this one simple, profound view or principle. I'm going to read one more thing from, this is from the introduction of the Theology of the Body, the text by Dr. Michael Wolstein. This is what Sister was saying. It is clear that John Paul II sees much need for change in this area. He sees an insufficient appreciation of the goodness of sexuality among Christians. In his view, Christians suffer from this defect not because they are Christians, but because they are affected by the Cartesian vision of nature characteristic of the modern age, and the consequent banalization of sex characteristic of the sexual revolution. One might well summarize John Paul II's judgment about the sexual revolution this way. The sexual revolution does not sufficiently appreciate the value and beauty of sex. It deprives sex of its depth by detaching it from the spousal meaning of the body. It favors the sexual lie, in which the language of radical gift is overlaid by the contrary language of individual autonomy and the use for pleasure. Page 126. And the use of persons for pleasure. John Paul II clearly and frequently affirms the goodness of sexual pleasure. But he sees sexual pleasure as belonging by its deepest and innermost nature to the dynamism of radical gift between man and woman. Okay, put plainly, if this is the will of God, Trinity, and this is sexuality, it goes here. This is the accurate picture. What we've done is this. Now this is open to abuse, redefinition. There's no context. It's floating out there like a piñata, getting banged all around. And something's missing from here. What we're trying to do in all these talks and the Theology of the Body, the whole point is to take this and put it back this way. So now we see God and the human person together correctly in an integrated way. And that's the beginnings of us living right, understanding what the church is really saying in all of its teachings. But we live like this. And unfortunately, too much of this passes for Catholicism today. We're not allowed to talk about this. Here's what's holy over here. This you don't even really talk about. We can only go so far with it. And the idea is to put it together. That's what makes it holy. That's why this is holy, because it comes from here. But as Sister was saying, the bottom line is you can't substitute the faith perspective, And we can try. There's a lot we can do in this regard, and speaking in non-sectarian ways. That's what I try to do with people. Try to reach across that chasm. That was new evangelization. Okay, where are the meeting points? Where can we get them to understand just from, like we said earlier, common sense, or just your experience of things? We can start to draw this closer, but it's really believing in God that makes it. There'll always be a little gap unless we have the faith perspective.
And it's so sad. Every day you see in the news where people looking for something. They're watching something on TV. They went to a sweat lodge and they all died because they were looking for something.
Yes,
God,
yeah.
That's how you test your religion every day.
Yes.
You see everyone looking for something in some strange way.
Yeah.
It's all there.
It is. It's all here. It just has to be unveiled, and understood, especially with the meaning of words. What does the church mean by each word that it says? what does the church mean by it? Not how the world sees it. Again, ask someone, what is patriarchy? Tell me why it's so bad. Let's say, well, you lord over people, and it's not fair because women don't have a chance, and it's not. Say, well, yeah, those are bad things, but that's not what patriarchy is.
They talk about the abuse of something.
Yes.
All the time, and so they say that is not valid because of the abuse of it.
Yeah, exactly. Like we said earlier, too. Throw the baby out with the bathwater, as it were. Just one final thing on dignity of women is womanhood, about the moral and spiritual strength of a woman is joined to her awareness that God entrusts the human being to her in a special way. Of course, God entrusts every human being to each and every other human being. But this entrusting concerns women in a special way, precisely by reason of their femininity. And this in a particular way determines their vocation. A woman is strong because of her awareness of this entrusting. Strong because of the fact that God entrusts the human being to her, always and in every way, even in the situations of social discrimination in which she may find herself. This awareness and this fundamental vocation speak to women with dignity which they receive from God Himself, and this makes them strong and strengthens their vocation. Thus the perfect woman becomes an irreplaceable support and source of spiritual strength for other people who perceive the great energies of her spirit. These perfect women are owed much by their families and sometimes by whole nations. A woman can only find herself by giving love to others. A woman's dignity is closely connected with the love which she receives by the very reason of her femininity. It is likewise connected with the love which she gives in return. He says, like in the order of things, in a sense, it's man, in the order of creation, woman is the one who is loved. Man is the one who loves, in a sense. I mean, it's both love, but in terms of an analogy, it's the woman is all about receiving love and reciprocating. It's interesting because this magazine, like on the way over here, I turned on the news before I left, and there was a Fox News, and it was an interview with Sarah Palin, and it was about she was being asked about what do you think about feminism and all that, and you're sort of flying in the face of some of it, and just about that, these now with the recent elections, a lot of women won, several women won. They say that women are again taking over more at primaries, yeah. So she was asked to comment on that. Thought it was kind of coincidental, just as I was leaving. But the mission of woman, the place of woman, wherever she is, it has to be in the context of the order of love, of what is. Even if you look at women's movements, even in the past, in the 1800s and so on, when women got active, it all had to do with like trying to organize like orphanages, care for the children, for the poor, for getting some of the bars closed down, the brothels and the salons, saloons and all that. In other words, they were. If you notice, womanhood has an intrinsic dignity to it and a wholesomeness to it. And if you notice that's what he's saying is their major contribution in. Look what the first ladies always did historically. They were busy, whether husband or presidents, they were busy about the business that had to do with like the heart of society. Like remember Lady Bird Johnson? She's the one that did all the landscaping and decorating all of America's highways and so like that. Yeah. Yeah, that was Lady Bird Johnson, yeah. Then what's the other ones? They had causes for like, the children with certain defects, and for instance. It all had to do, if you notice, it had to do with the very things that had to do with the order of what is human, what is wholesome, what had to do with not issues so much, but like life. and love, caring. They've been saying that even when it says about the women going all the professions, predominantly they're dominating the professions that have to do with areas of like social service. They said the one area that's still dominated by men is they said two things: engineering and custodian. That the men are still very much present there, and the women aren't as much in engineering. Or if they go in engineering, it's not like the real hard engineering, you know. It's but it's interesting because even though they're in the professions, they're in it in a way that's again consistent with their femininity, even automatically. You know, they're in the workforce, but they're in ways that are still part of their gifts. And the workforce has changed, is what they're saying. You know, the workforce is no longer just, especially now, construction is down. You know, the construction, the coal mining, the steel mills, all that stuff, which was, you know, men were. It's changed, and so women are more in the workplace. Yeah.
Seems like the feminists of the '60s, though, were not this nurturing group. They were
Right.
kind of radical, primarily Jewish, intelligent, who knew better.
Yes.
They were out to, they had an agenda.
Yes, they did.
Maybe it was nurturing, but
There were three waves of so-called feminist movement in history. All three were good, but the third one went awry. That's the one we're living in now. The first one had to do with owning property, and then voting, and then finally equal rights, like in the workplace. But that's the one that kind of went awry. As you said, it had an agenda. It had a gender blending agenda, an anti sort of male agenda, defining women, and it was just outgrowth of
need a man like fish needs a bicycle. That was the big.
Yeah, right. I would say, this is a feminist movement, really? I haven't seen one. Yeah. Oh,
You know, I was watching all the hockey stuff, and I usually don't like women's sportscasters because now it's like all women's sportscasters is like the whole thing of like, where's the men's sportscasters? But the women were doing a great job because they were asking the guys, Troy Brower, and his dad was really sick during the playoffs, and she's like, how's your dad doing?
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
And she goes, you know, sometimes we don't think of you as human beings. You're like these machines out there on the ice. And then she said to him, and he goes, yeah, we have feelings too. It was so great. She was doing such a great job. You know?
I would ask the women something just for fun. Boy, I thought the age of the real men was over, but what was the name? Duncan Keith? Oh man, that's a real man for you. Oh my gosh.
This guy left 17. And kept playing.
He kept playing. He's doing,
Immediately after they just
yeah.
his needles, numbed his mouth.
And he went out there. He took a hockey about 7 teeth. You know, just to lose 1 tooth, 7 teeth. And he kept playing. He's even doing an interview afterwards like it's nothing. In fact, he even said, he goes, oh yeah, it's just teeth. The main thing is we won. You know, I said, golly, that is so theology of the body. This is, oh my God. It is. In fact, there's oh God. Oh my gosh. So, now I was talking with some young ladies about it. They said, well, they thought that was hot. But you know what? Yeah, and also they saw that and I even asked one of the young ladies, she elaborated on it, and then she went where I thought she'd go with it. She said, the reason why we young ladies think that's hot, Father, is because we see in him that, wow, if he can take a hit for the team, he'll take it for a family and a wife. I said, you got it, bingo. That's what you're recognizing. Your deep feminine is recognizing the deep masculine in him, and you found it to be hot, and you also find it far too rare.
Because you're always saying that men are socialized by their external world.
Yes.
And so the messages they're getting, I really think, is not good. You know, like,
Right.
And I have this huge problem. I did my last, my last article for the Catholic New World was on Family Guy, that horrible show.
Oh yeah.
You know, and again, it's exactly what that article said. We don't need you. We're just used to you. So
Yeah,
you can
exactly.
stay.
Yeah, you can
know,
stay. Yeah.
You can stay in the house and
Yeah.
be this big idiot, this fool. You know.
Wow.
So I think if guys are socialized a different way, they'll
Yes.
step up to that. They want to do
They,
this.
yes, they do.
They
Yeah.
want to step up and lose 17.
That's
Yeah.
why they go in the army. I mean,
Yes,
they
it
wanna
is.
kill, they wanna
Exactly.
kill, my God.
I think that's the one place where
Yes.
they know they're going to be
Right.
appreciated as men
They wanna serve.
and allowed to be men.
Yes. And wouldn't it be nice if they could rediscover that in the church? We'd have
Yes.
vocations
Not
again,
have
but they
it
don't
as
see it
full
there.
reward, yeah.
See it there. I watched an interview one time of had 3 or 4 guys that came back from Iraq, and these guys were very disfigured from their injuries, burn, all that. And I was surprised they even had them on TV, But these guys were happy, confident, at peace. And you know what they said? They said they'd go back in a minute. It was the most unbelievable thing. I mean, to look at them, what happened to them, and they're there, and the I don't know if it was Oprah or somebody, whoever I was watching, and they said, why would you do that? And they said very much like what Duncan Keith, his name is, the hockey player, said. It's the same kind of thing. And this is where you really get the insight into masculinity, what it's really all about, because for them, what mattered more than anything else was their being a part of being able to give themselves on behalf of this high cause, and for the rest of they said that because we want to be back with our buddies, taking that hill. They had this camaraderie and the sense of a cause that they had to rise to, and that will transcend everything from it. That's what a man lives for, and he will take every hit and go right back out there if he knows. And that's what we have to do in our seminaries as we raise our boys. We have that cause. It's right there. It's right there. There's our general who took the hits for us. We follow him to take literally that hill, Calvary. If somehow this is again why, to conclude our summer here, why the theology body is the answer to everything, because it gives us this view. It restores this vision again. And it can restore marriage, family, and vocations, the economy, the environment, the health care. Someone's telling me to stop talking. Anyway, thank you very much. So we'll take a little summer off, and I'm willing to continue if you want to have me.